But while we do that, I'll do a bit of an introduction. I don't see faces from the last panel discussion. I don't know if any of you were here last Saturday. Yes, we have one person that was here last Saturday. And are any of you artists on the exhibition, works on the exhibition? One, also just one person. Okay, so the rest of you are like friends and family and just passionate about art. So this is a 3-week series of discussions related to the exhibition Home is Where the Art Is, which I hope many of you have visited and taken a look at. It's the series of discussions are a response to what I think is quite a unique exhibition. It's definitely rattled and changed what we think this museum is and what it does. And last week, the conversation was on community crisis and care. And I think it was a beautiful discussion. We had the art centers that had participated as drop-off zones. And I think by the end of it, there were a couple of tasks that they kind of wanted to move forward with. And today we're talking about the politics of inclusivity, breaking the walls of privilege, which is a very tough kind of heavy statement to make. And I think all of us sitting here feel a little bit overwhelmed by this question of privilege and what is that? How do you deal with it? How do you tackle that? But I think in creating the exhibition, which was a call to the public of Cape Town, and I'm gonna quote another curator director who his name is Kwesi Kune, is the director of the JAG in Johannesburg, and he related a museum to the human body or to a person. And he said, if the mind is the discursive, the heart is kind of the personality and the soul, and the body is obviously the physical structure, then the museum is a social being. And what does that being look like? Okay, so who are we talking to when we talk to the museum? And in my mind, when we think about the museum and this exhibition, and it's asking for the most immediate community, which is Cape Town, then this exhibition is us looking in the mirror as a museum. And what does that look like? So today we've got two actually of the art of participating artists on the exhibition. We did have a third, but sadly he can't be here today. He lives quite far, and although we arranged an Uber and hopefully would have had someone pick him up, it was just quite chaotic, and I think speaks again to this question of privilege and who can be here today and participate, and what are the difficulties that we have to go through to get here. So, that being said, Anati is not here today. I don't want to talk too much about his work because he's not here, but he's an amazing artist, and you'll see one work of his in the first frame there. But we also have Lelisipho Kulwa, who is facilitating training at La Lela, so he also works on site at the museum in the art education department. He's also a facilitator at Nyanga Art Center, and an artist, an independent artist, a writer. I've read some of your work. Got a second self-published thing coming out hopefully soon as well. Joseph Kutsia, who is a teacher at Cedar Higher Art School, also an independent artist, as well as 1/3 of Uncle's Art Dealers, which is a quarter of Uncle's Art Dealers, which is a space in Woodstock. And hopefully we'll speak a little bit about that as well. And we have Bonolo Kabula, who is independent artist, and not an artist on the exhibition, but maybe you'll say why or why not. But I think adds a lot to the conversation in terms of your work in the art industry, as well as kind of how you talk back to the industry often. Yeah. As well as has shown one work here titled Black Mona Lisa, which was a video work responding to questions of institutions and success, I guess, as an artist, what that looks like. So I'm kind of going to start us off and just ask Joseph more specifically to talk about just what you do. What do you do as an artist, or as a practitioner, as a teacher? What do you do?
Okay. Greetings, everyone. I myself, I'm originally from the Eastern Cape, from Grahamstown, Makanda. I've been in Cape Town since 2016, and I didn't come here specifically to teach the site. I mean, I was interested in teaching. I wanted to do something with my time, but I was applying for different things, and I ended up interning at Art Africa magazine. Like with anything with the name Africa in its name that's run by rich white people, it wasn't such a nice space. And in terms of didn't do, but I didn't really enjoy the space so much in terms of felt like I was doing something worthwhile with my time, and I had been fortunate enough to study a master's in fine art and also making my own work. But I'd met a friend of mine, Tandiwe Msubenzi, who was a participating artist in a fair that we had to set up, and she was teaching at CEDA at the time. And that kind of linked me initially to CEDA. I thought I'd only end up teaching there for about 6 months, and me and Baron Katz and Rory Emmett, who were two other independent artists who I ended up working with there. I basically ended up really inspired by the space. Cedar High is in Rocklands. It's a school that was, I think, initially built in 1982, and then in the 90s it got funding to become basically a government school, but with art, dance, music, drama, and design as subjects as well. And I was kind of inspired by many of the teachers who've been working there for many years, and the kind of the idea of I guess it's in many ways I've just been learning a lot, and it's been motivating me to kind of work harder in my own practice. But we've also had a lot of space to kind of do things. They're challenging the kind of space. The space is built like any apartheid era government school, so like 3 brick blocks with a foghorn factory siren, like the ones that go for the ducks as the school bell. And basically we've done there are a lot of old murals there. I don't know if basically in my independent practice I have gravitated a lot towards mural painting, and I've met a lot of graffiti or mural artists that on the side that I kind of have been creating work with. And being in Rocklands, which was just next to Westridge, is also a very inspiring space in the sense that it's kind of like the birthplace of graffiti in South Africa in terms of the 80s and 90s, and a lot of the murals around there and some of the artists who are still living there actively practicing, like Set One or Drone and Skip or Conform or people like that have kind of influenced my own practice, and I've also enjoyed the ethos of creating work that is kind of there for people to see and not for sale. And I mean, I've just used, for instance, big ups to Seth, but in his area where he stays in Westridge, if you go there, you will see like every second house is covered in beautiful murals. And it's not so much the ethos of painting letters. I mean, they're all letter painting writers for huge productions of backgrounds, and very kind of, also those artists are very inspired by kind of creating imaginative, not stuff that's socially critical, but stuff that also is full of imagination and kind of hope, and that's also kind of inspired my practice. Because for a long time I was kind of feeling the need to make very just critical, pretty stuff the whole time, which is also it's a different sense of criticality, which is a kind of challenging space. Also, being in Cape Town as an artist that's interested in public art, you can't deny the bylaws are a huge influence on the space. Cape Town is like the only place in South Africa, and I think thanks to the DA, that basically it's extremely legal to paint even if you have the permission from the homeowner who you're painting on his house. Obviously, graffiti and public art survive, but the gentrified areas where you see a lot of murals like Salt River and Woodstock, where there's art here, but there's a few vendors that are kind of foreign funded and invested who basically get overseas these vendors, and they kind of don't include many local artists. So there are many also local artists who boycott them. But it means kind of Cape Town's a very contested space to be an artist that's interested in public art. And see it as a microcosm. I'd kind of been encouraging, well, I had gotten permission from the school to do a lot of mural painting inside the school with students, basically as students' projects. Like for the last few years, we did a grade 11 painting project at Burton where they got to propose space on the school and basically beautify it. But even within that, I've kind of met challenges with it being a kind of government building and that being not allowed. Another thing I guess I'd like to mention about CEDA, I could you show one of the Cypher videos? Just before I show this, basically, me and some colleagues since 2018 have been doing this live music. Basically, every Thursday at second interval, we let students kind of host their own assembly in the main part. Where it started with an open mic, and initially it was like basically, because CEDA and I think Chris Hani High are the only two big government schools that have art, dance, music, drama, and design, besides the art centers, like the other art centers. Students come from all over, as far as Delft or Algo, even to come to CEDA with the hopes of doing art, but then, or drama or dance, but then because it's still it's a huge school with like 1,400 learners. Not everyone gets to do the art subjects, and we get a lot of people that are just there that come there to do art but don't do those subjects. So we were trying to do something that also kind of spoke to art that people maybe dance that wasn't necessarily recognized as dance within the subject, but dance that people are practicing, or for instance, music that wasn't recognized within the subject. Yeah, classical music, but hip hop or whether it be singing some of the old R&B songs or whatever. So we wanted to be a space. In recent years, it's very much just become kind of a showcase for grown producers and kind of dance battles. But I'll just show you like a clip of basically this was happening. Obviously, this year with COVID, it hasn't been happening. But this is this is a clip from YouTube from one of them from last year.
Your personal guide to the world of hip-hop. Get a free trial of YouTube Music Premium today.
On a few different levels. Of course, in terms of the students getting into arts institutions, but then also myself as a kind of white South African, kind of also like I've encountered people before that like, why aren't you teaching at a white school, or for instance, or why like it kind of lines. But I guess I've also wanted to be self-reflexive in talking here because it's also like why, but I wanted to kind of say that from my own perspective, I hadn't viewed it as much like that in the sense that this is a very kind of CETA is a very intellectual space with a mad long struggle history of different kind of cultural workers who've been working within the space to kind of subvert what the system is kind of pushing it onto, right? My colleagues, I've been very inspired by a lot of the colleagues I work with, and also some of the artists, I guess, that I've met who I mean, you can see cases from previous teachers. There was another teacher in the 90s who was doing a lot of murals around the side of the school, and I've kind of heard a lot about them, but never met them. Yeah.
Because at the time that Laura was there, it was like, it was long ago, but you're still there. So what is it about having you there, which is still amazing, but just having mentioned like in the cultural world is being there before and do you find that people go and just cannot
sustain?
Like what is it about?
I think it's a heavy space. I think I also feel like that it's also I really enjoy what I do and like I'm really kind of like I have a huge art studio space that's kind of very interactive. There are many things, I mean, constraints of budget, constraints of there's also heavy because people are dealing with a lot of shit at home and in different spaces and people that obviously overplays into the space and also the people I guess have different goals of what they personally like. Like I know both Rory and Sandy and Ganu have very much gone on that trajectories of their personal work and you can't like I've been this year taking seriously trying to Tammy mentioned Uncles, which is basically me and three other artist friends who we saw a studio space for renting this up and we thought why would we brand this as a mini gallery basically and we've been trying to rent it together and make it independent. But even with that it's there are a lot of kind of it's complicated trying to freelance and as soon as you start trying to because your time is the hugest currency. So if you're gonna be full time doing something like this, for teaching that's your whole week and you also wanna be something that is disruptive and terrible to the space if you are not dedicated all your time to it. You're basically gonna let things slide and it's gonna be so I guess what's kept me there so long as I guess I've been my practice is kind of I ended up becoming really good friends with a lot of Euro cultures around and I stay quite close by, I stay strong with it. So I kind of my life is close by, I'm painting a lot around there and so that has kind of kept me there and I've obviously just worked close with my colleagues and with students as well. So it's kind of you kind of see like two things that you can contribute towards and then that kind of is also like rewarding. And it's cool to be able to like I would never have mentioned you guys in a project with me if I hadn't been teaching but also been trying to kind of organize like being participating in organizing collaborative projects and things like that. So I guess that is kind of what has kept me and what makes me consider staying. So it's rewarding more than it's it's something that
I think that's an important point in the sense that I guess trying to continue ways of inclusive practice becomes unsustainable at some point for the human, for people trying to push, trying to subvert. Subversion is not easy. It's not something that can happen in a day. And I guess that's a question to all of you at some point is like this question of exhaustion, like the burdens of representation for yourself or for other people. But I want to maybe move to Linesipo and ask him a little bit about his practice. And as a facilitator, as an artist, I think there's one striking image here, this one. And what you described in terms of teaching the story of Fela and why this image was so important for you.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay, hello Mulweni. Kamalam Linesipo Kulwa. My name is Linesipo Kulwa. I was born in Kailicha, 1995. I grew up in Kukule, Kupaki. Waikiki is more of a community. It's like the aftermath of a hurricane. It's the place that was the host house, it was the men's host house with the apartheid. Then when the government was like, apartheid is over, all men can call their woman, and that's how we ended up there. I come from a family of activists, you know. My mother was in the MK, and my father's father was there in Fekan and all these things. So by the time I grew up, for me it was normal, you know, to just on a daily basis, police come and they search the house. I remember one of the strongest memories I hate to carry, however they still exist. I was having a plan and then soldiers walked in and they asked, where's your park? And I said, I don't know. I was having a park, I was in the park naked. Then one guy stepped in the park and then the water went, you know. Then I didn't understand what was happening or why is this happening. But as time goes on, the parents get to inform you what's happening, you understand. So as a child who didn't study art at school, I then realized that no man, it is only wise of me to use my art or my gift to educate my fellow community of how to tackle the system. Because throwing rocks in the street, destroying the least of the very infrastructure we have is not the solution. If we get to change what we can't, then that means we get to be smarter than the way it's us. So along the journey of discovering who am I and who's doing what, I come across Fela and I realized Fela was a great Nigerian African artist, and as in that image, that one, I was searching for references. Like, I would like to paint this guy, you know. Then I come across this image where Fela is like, you know, I then took the reference to Imvula Primary School. Imvula Primary School is in White City, Enyanga. I painted that image and then the children were like, you did this, teacher? I still struggle with the term teacher because I didn't study teaching, but I teach, you see, because I'm an artist, I'm an educator of the community, so how about that? Like, yes, then they think it's a miracle. I show them this is not food, it's not witchcraft. I can teach you this thing, and this thing can take you far. And then, so what I do with how I tackle the class activity with children is I teach them how to paint, and then I slide through theory. I ask them, if your mother and father or your neighbor ask you who is this, what are you gonna say? It's Fela, teacher. So why was Fela living in Nigeria? What was Fela doing? He was an activist. How was he spreading the message? He was a musician. Do you understand me? So, and I can't lie to you. There are plenty of visual artists in the community, but the school doesn't make a very welcoming energy for those practitioners or people who practice such art to come to the school and educate children. Because I want that to there is what they so-called art and culture in school, but it's a joke. Because if I recall when I was a boy, all I got from art and culture was Sikeleli Africa, of which I don't know who wrote that song. Color the flag. I don't know who painted that flag. Even now, I'm telling you, I'm a South African, I don't know who made the flag. The coat of arms. Only those two things, then I was out of the school system. Then I realized, man, no, instead of having a toxic reflection of this, perhaps me going back to teach the school with a chance to correct these wrongs. You understand? And the children love visual art. Aside the fact that it is a tool that they can use to express or communicate or reflect or pose and freeze memories, you understand? So my craft is, I would say, highly influenced by my uprising. As a child grew up in the township. I remember, it was in 2000 or 2002, I don't recall very well, because me and my friends were playing. Then we saw a yellow van. It was yellow or orange, I don't recall. Then the other kids were red. I do not know why they were running, because I was like, are they going to take our boat? Then they were like, those are the police. Oh, so we ran from them. So imagine as a child, it's like instead of having a childhood, you are waking up that, listen, there is a mission in this society. You know what I mean? And there are some people that I'm trying to have a childhood, and there's some people that I run away from. Hello, you know what I mean? It's the same thing when I thought of this feeling, I struggled. I was asking a friend of mine, how do we explain Corona to a 2-year-old? Because my daughter is 2 years. And then I'm thinking, with this lockdown thing, we're supposed to go to the park. Then we can't go to the park. She wants to go to the park. And then I must explain to her that in a community like this, all the time I saw a yellow van and I red. I was maybe your age, I don't remember. Now, the same thing is happening the other way around. It's also, it proposes the same feeling, whether it's a different approach. Fear. Scared of, I don't know what's next. Scared so much that you like, I'm sick of being scared. And I might as well, whatever, however. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I hope the next man picks the bait one. You know what I mean? And there's so many paintings we do. There's another painting that we did for Mambusu Songo, which is that one. I took that painting to the school. I was encouraging them when we did this portrait with Mambusu Songo that in this world it's fine to use your language. You know what I mean? Because Mambusu, most songs she sang is important, even though she was not a South African. And they like, how? I'm like, that is proof of evidence that there is a universal communication. Because somebody sing a song is important, and then people can feel that this person is really sad. And we see images of people in Iran, the flesh trying to penetrate through the bones, and the emotions don't lie. And we're like, something is really weird going on, right? So art is the least that the society has. Hence, it is important that by any means necessary, we as artists, we should not be provoked with threats like, you can't paint the president like that. I can't. This is a can't. You know what I mean? Because it's the last thing that pretends the truth. Religion has failed. Politics have failed. But they've failed. So, what is it that's there? Art. We're able to see the image of Christ through art. Through art. We're able to see, which clown now is president through art. Through art. Now we're able to see all these things through art. Through art.
So art can't lie. Art can't lie.
I can't lie unless it's in Hollywood. Yeah, they lie a lot. I hate it when they make black people look like fools too.
I guess that's an important question around representation, and it sparked something that I know we experienced when we did the call out for this exhibition. I think our hope and intention was that we go as far and wide into what Cape Town is as possible. Yeah. But what tended to happen was you got the people who had the artworks the most ready, were the first in line at the door, ready to hand over a pristine artwork. So I'm going to ask maybe two things. One is about, I guess, this point of can art lie, representation, and who can make art about what. Is there a rule? As artists, do you police yourself in terms of what you can and cannot make art about? And then secondly, what is the the work that happens between imagining something and then finished produced product and the way it's then seen. Because there's a lot of transmutation that happens, a lot of changes that happen in the process. So I guess I'm asking two things, but let's start with the first one. Do you police yourself as artists? Like, do you tell those kids, actually, we can't make a painting about Fela because we never met him? Or Joseph, like, in terms of your art making, do you question what I can and cannot depict?
Okay, I'll go first. It's fine. You okay? Okay. So overseas, this thing goes like this. If this is something, this is a conversation that takes in my mind as a human being. You understand? If I'm gonna paint Zuma naked, what I think is I'm a father. I'm a father. I'm a father of a 2-year-old, and I am aware of what the high power is capable of. That's just on the safety side of things. On the other side, I think to myself, who is supposed to live forever? And I'm like, okay, heading somewhere. And I think again, this is not a mystery. This is not something that people don't know. You know? And then I think to myself, there's nothing I'm not gonna do. Why there's nothing I'm not gonna do? Because I remember very well, I am a grandson of a couple that the grandmother was a colored and the father was black, and they were separated. They had things they couldn't do, and that was their horror. And they dealt with it by moving from Cape Town to Transkei. But I'm not gonna move from Cape Town to Transkei with a painting under my arm because I'm scared of the system. What is the system doing for me? Nothing. What am I scared of the system doing to me? Nothing. Am I going to be the first or the last to be crucified in public and embarrassed by the system? No. Why? Because this is what the system is doing to me throughout the years. Whether I choose to make friends with the system and mock it flaws, it's still gonna nail me. Whether I choose to rebel and do what I want with my art because this is my heaven that I'm creating, it's still gonna nail me. If they don't, they're gonna tell me this painting is not good enough, so we're gonna take it for 3,000. Then I must think, ish, at least they don't have not permanent. If I don't take this 3,000, ish, it's still gonna nail me still. So what do? I chose to crawl and go and spit in the face of the beat. If it ends me, I'm like, now I have detected. Now I have detected your behavior. You truly a monster.
Can I just ask Bonola to answer also, because I almost feel like it's a perfect segue to some of the work that we were first going to mention, and then yeah, you can kind of just add on what you like. But Bonola Kamala is an amazing artist, and I've put in 2 video works of hers. You Must Be Exhausted, which I believe was an early Kayla's work, and then a second piece, Black Mona Lisa, which was a video work also done as part of the Men Complaint exhibition actually. And yeah, do you want to talk about that?
No, I was actually just in the trance, and now when you were speaking, I was like, yes. To everything. Especially also the point, I think also what you were trying to say is that this thing of valuing yourself as an artist, and said like, when do you start making the decision of like, I'm not going to sell myself short, whether I comply with what the system wants or not. So I'm gonna like, I feel like I'm still gonna lose. So yeah, thanks for that. I really resonate with what you said. Hi everyone. My name is Bonola Kamala. I'm an artist and recently an independent artist. So my entry into the art world was quite unexpected. I never wanted to really be an artist because I never knew what I didn't have an example of an artist to look up to and say, oh, like you. Like my art teachers were the closest thing to people who make art for a living. And they were weird, and I didn't want to be weird. So like, I don't aspire to be like these people. But I was fortunate enough, and just speaking about opportunities and privilege and that sort of thing, the only way I got into art school was because I was extremely lucky. There was this competition, I don't know if it's still running, it's called the ShopRite, I'll get to the question later. It's called the ShopRite Checkers Strokes of Genius. It was the first year that they were doing it. So this is like a big corporation, ShopRite, and they had set up this thing, and for like school, art students in high school would enter, and the winner gets a cash prize, that sort of thing. So my art teacher actually gets us all. See, art teachers are like the angels of the art world.
They're the connectors, the original blood.
Yeah, it's very important work. Like, art teachers are good. So then she hooks me up and she's like, oh, these people, the due date. She's like, hey, let's run into the competition, blah, blah, blah. So I remember there was a science test coming up there to study for, and anything to avoid that, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I had a good excuse to kind of like not study for the science thing. Anyway, so I ended up going to all the finals, rounds, whatever. So I win the competition, and now everybody's convinced like this is your calling, this is what you have to do. So I was like, okay. I'm like young, I don't know what I want, but people are telling me, yeah, this is your ticket to the and somebody tells me, okay, this is the best school in the country, apply. So it's kind of pushed me to this field. So I go to art school, and I meet fantastic, like I've become friends with, really amazing artists today. But I think my attitude for something that has never been, like art was my passion. So it's not something that I wanted to do as a career. It's always been like a hard thing for me. I love art. So I think when you come into a space and you have a hard attitude about it, it's kind of difficult to see where things aren't, where things are unfair or just like systematically messed up and whatever, So sometimes
So hard can conquer all.
I'm like, oh, this isn't cool, this isn't whatever. So my attitude always is to like, fix what's wrong. Yeah, don't do this like that. This isn't right. But also you have to understand that you're in a system that like it doesn't like belong to you. Like these are people and starting up museums, and it's a capitalist system essentially, or at least where I am in my field with galleries and commercial galleries and art fairs and whatever. It's a business model. So I don't have the experience of working in a community or in education. Yes, I've dabbled here and there during the holidays when I had to like maybe facilitate a workshop. Or I've sort of had my finger in like all the different pies that one could, but mainly in the business of art. Also just, I'm getting to the point. So just touching on privilege, I think the first time that I did something to, say, screw the system, I didn't do it myself. It was like a collective effort with my friends in university where we noticed a certain kind of privilege firsthand. So when I speak about privilege, I'm not, thinking about, it's not a black and white thing. I think in the art world is a very system-driven, it's a system problem. And there are system players who are, who either perpetuate privilege or have the power to change it or use it as is. So we notice a certain kind of privilege in art school. So I'm talking about behaviors. I mean, even studying art at university is a privilege. So I am a privileged black artist in comparison to other artists. And so we notice that like black male artists are very privileged. Like they literally have their foot in the gallery door before they even graduate. They have one black artist can have 5 mentors. And we were like, why isn't anybody sort of willing to take black women artists under their wings? So that's, and then you realize later on that, oh, okay, black male artists, are in demand, they sell the most. So we're gonna protect, the system players are gonna protect what makes the business run, right? So anyway, so we as a black woman, we're like, this isn't clear, why is that black artist getting mentored, blah. So then, I mean, that's just one of many things, but we decided to start, it was the first all black women collective in South Africa. There have been collectives before, but this was like, woman power. So 11 of us joined and we actually applied for an exhibition at the university, and they didn't take us in. They were like, oh, too many applications, whatever. And we're just like, this is the first collective like that woman. We're not gonna, these are like your students. We the ones who actually make really good work. Like, why would you give us that space? So then we applied to the ABA Gallery, which is a non-profit organization, and usually NPOs are driven by, let's make a. They also kind of, let's make a change, let's do this, whatever. So ABA took us with open arms, and that's where we had our first exhibition. But again, it was something that we had to do. We had to sort of recognize the power, our potential power, exercise it, and hold it. So even today, I still stand firm. Even I'm not, I'm not part of the collective, but I still stand firm in my power of having been part of the collective. And if anybody tries me, I'm like, hey, I'm one of 11, like, not trying each other. So yeah, so I'm still very much like, looking at how the system is, and like with a very cheeky attitude. And you see like in my video with Black Mona Lisa. So the video that I made when I was first invited to show here, I was thinking about my position as a Black woman in the arts, having worked in galleries and being a Black woman working in a gallery, you kind of also like very pushed into this very you're not given, depending on your position, but it was kind of like, my positions have been quite timid, and, just stand in the corner, serve the drinks, keep quiet, man the door, watch the door, open the door, close the door, type of thing. And that's not my energy. Like, I'm quite, as timid as I am, like, I'm quite like, I'd like to think inside I have a picture of a lion. So with Black Mona Lisa, I was like, yeah, imagine if I was not now, in 20 years' time, I would be like that hit girl. And I created the persona that I would see for myself in 20 years' time, or at least maybe for my daughter. Like, if I have a kid and they want to study art, I'm going to listen in the ear and be like, do this, do that. So I just imagine this character that is everything that I'm not, or everything that I can't be at the moment because of the limitations of the system. So Black Mona Lisa is just like, she's cheeky, she's like sexy, she's talented, she's like, yeah, I can also be like the white male artist. I can also, so she's rapping, and the culture of rap is to kind of, the whole point is to spit facts and like, yeah, but the also thing is you have to like acknowledge your ego, And I think as a Black woman and Black people, like, we're, it's not so easy. Even if you are confident and you have an ego, or as a Black woman and walk into the workspace, you'll shower in the morning, put your makeup on, then go to work, and then at work, you get shut down so many times. Like, so it's even hard to even sustain any kind of ego in these spaces. So Black Mona Lisa was just like, me imagining what, what does a famous Black woman look like who's never been told she can't, who's never been fooled in a business transaction, who's never been, all of these things that you experience coming up, and yeah, so that was the basically, also, maybe I'll turn into a thing this time, I don't know, but yeah, she's the lion in my head. Okay. Yeah, Joseph, I don't know if you want to answer.
I had a few thoughts about what you asked us earlier. In terms of, when you're talking about painting the president, it was just making me think of the difference between Brett Murray painting the president and Ayanda Mapulo. And I feel like Brett Murray is very like racist artist who, but at the same time with the art world, right? The art world kind of incubates racism. So you had his Hail to the Thief exhibition being in Art Africa, being in Art Times, no one worrying about it, and no one worrying about this way worse works that are way more racist, like struggle posters that have been ripped off with like, kind of cheap one-liner slogans, like basically implying that, people from the struggle now want Shivers Regal or whatever, and like gorilla statues and shit like that. And that's all very racist, but like no one was like, oh shit, this is so racist. And, in any of these white publications. And then as soon as members of the public saw that painting, kind of spoke to how, immediately that people started defending his freedom of speech, But where Ayanda Mapulo, I think, was speaking with a different voice, and it just made me think about school curriculum at the moment, right? Like, I think spaces like Zeitz should be really calling out, like, our school, high school curriculum is still super racist also. Like, it literally in grade 10, you get taught, like, there's an African art chapter which doesn't have Egypt in it, and you've got, like, you got a chapter that's like basically our current curriculum was written by people from Stellenbosch, like, rewritten the older party curriculum in the 90s that's still kind of rolled out at the moment, right? And very Eurocentric, very, like, there's a chapter about the emerging artists of South Africa, which is like Peter Clark and George Pemba and George Koto, but then there's a resistance art from the 70s and 80s, which is all white artists from Michaelis, right? And you don't learn about any of the whole history of resistance art in terms of poster making or anything like that, or queer artists or activists. So it's such a woman, like the voice of emerging artists, only male artists. And like, the point that I guess I'm trying to make, I want to use an analogy. In 2018, I was at a teacher meeting in 2019 of all, like, the art teachers in Cape Town or the Western Cape, and it's like all middle-aged white people, and then, like, a few younger artists. I'm generalizing a bit, but I'm just kind of speaking about the admin of the setup. It's also like because it's still kind of fun to education in terms of which schools have art as a subject, right? And it's still like an ongoing thing. So we have all these, like, big institutions like this that have these education programs, but you're not really, like, sustainably looking at, like, whoa, why is it set up like this? Why are matric exams only in English and Afrikaans across South Africa? There's not a Xhosa, you can't translate. But listen to this, in 2018, the matric paper had a Ayanda Mabulo artwork in it called Kill the Bull, right? And that painting, the caption of the painting, the title, was written in Xhosa. So the papers, there's no Xhosa translation of any of the papers, but then they leave the caption that's titled Kill the Bull in Xhosa, and you're like, okay, but then what are you trying to do? You're trying to make white kids in private schools feel like, like you're trying to gentrify artworks, basically. And that, like, I kind of brought that up in a meeting, but, there's no response. I mean, the admin of our education system is still very much like, we've had a push with Peace Must Fall and all of these sorts of things, like Rose Must Fall, to look at university curriculum, but high school curriculum is, like, super, like, there's a big jump. And then on top of that, but most of those artists students who are studying at Westfield or wherever, going into UCT, and very few students from schools in, Kailicho or Mitchell Plain or anything like that going into, it's a huge struggle to even get into any kind of technical or whatever kind of institution at all, right? Let alone practice. So there's artists everywhere. We're all artists in this room, whether we practicing or not. We're all artists. That's a big lot. We're talking about, it's a huge capitalist system that must be like, I need to be able to be bankable, I need to put your face on all of this stuff. But like, breaking these walls and kind of talking about freedom of speech in a very, like, a system that's super, administrative. I'm only really speaking like this because I'm not trying to enter the art world in a super serious sense, so I can't diss everyone. You know what I mean?
There's an amazing subversion of, like, the kinds of art you make, who you're speaking to, and why you definitively make art. And if it's not speaking to the capitalist system, or it's not speaking to ways of consuming art that is for the eye, and that's for the pocket, then what does that art look like?
Look, I think that I mean, this is what I had to speak. Is the only way we can't really change the system. I think the system just needs another system to compete with, and we should be the ones who start our own galleries. Like, I'm like trying to figure out, okay, how do I open my own print workshop instead of thinking, oh, I don't have a printing press, I can't make this. How do I begin to do this? Teaching, like, create curriculums, make comics that, like, will have a different viewpoint on art. I also like learning about the white artists who made art during apartheid and the other black artists who were in exile. For me, that's just like, okay, can we talk about them that privilege? Because there are white artists who are famous, but they based off of a struggle that wasn't, they were depressed, but their whole profile is based on, like, an issue that other black artists have the privilege to even express their feelings on. But nobody educates that deep, So we should just do our own thing, open our own galleries, participate, yes, see where things can change. But I honestly, I was just like, yeah, just open your mind, just be the chick that's chilly, but literally be and build the change that you want to see. I think because there isn't competition, and I see it's happening in Johannesburg, a lot of artists opening up like artist run galleries and so on, and that's amazing. I think when there isn't competition, that's where like just opens room for like abuse, disrespect, really thinking that other artists don't bring anything to the table, shit like that that you don't have to deal with because you don't have the money. It's not ours, it's not our world, it's not our building. But yeah, just yeah.
So all the time, I had to tap on what you were saying, who you speak with, or who you're talking to, or who you're addressing. So the other day I was painting, I was painting outside. When it's hot, the shack gets hotter. That's why you find black people when it's hot, they're always in the street, like in the corner. It's not because we're cool. It's hotter in the shack. So you better go to the sun than be under the zinc. So I'm painting outside. I can feel this old man coming without looking because I got energy. But I'm like, I'm not gonna give him my attention for free. He's already getting the government grant for free. Not my attention. Painting. Then he says to me, hey, I'm like, that's not how you address me. Ask my name. And I'm like, let me paint. I'm just thinking, he's gonna get it wrong. This one. He's like, hey, he says to me, when are you getting a job? And then a part of me says to me, he's old, these people, he's already close to the grave. Take it easy to him. A part of me says, no, let him know, man. Let him know this is my job, man. And then I turn around. I say, Molo. I heard the question, but I had to twist the energy and greet him instead of answering. He says, what are you doing here? Maybe this old man, Kanshan. He asked me, when am I getting a job? He asked me, what am I doing here? And the sheds, we don't have yards. So the minute you step out of the door, your privacy is over. Anyone can say anything, anyone can do anything. And you got to deal with it. And you have to be smart and deal with it. Psychology counts. Psychology matters. And I says to him, have you ever heard of art? He says, yeah. My Mlungu had that thing in his wall. I said, yeah. You see this thing that your Mlungu had in his wall? I do it. He says, oh, Nyani. He says, really? The moral of the story is, long story short, I am painting, right, to educate, and the educator is asking me, who are you educating? Do you know what is the problem? Where the problem is actually? It's how schools came with the approach of education. Because I'll tell you something. In the process of Ukwalusa being shepherds as boys, looking after grandfathers' cows, we learned how to do inkomo yomjongo, the small clay cow. In the process of being shepherds, we learned how to do umjongo. In the process of being shepherds, we learned how to hit eggs. We learned how to hunt. We learned how to memorize which bird is that, which bird is that. We also learned the river names. So our people, the indigenous people or the native people, had a way of educating the children by means of making them do one thing, but actually there's like 10 lessons within that. We were only supposed to look after the goats, but we came up with clay cows. One guy hit the bird, and one guy almost got bitten by a snake, and he realizes, oh, when the parents are not around, I can look after myself. You know what the school system does? Sit here. You sit like this. You are going to be an accountant. Okay. You are going to work for a corporate company. Okay. You are going to earn 30,000 a month. Okay. You're gonna own a Mercedes Benz. Okay. You're gonna pay installment. Okay. And then you go to university. NEFSAS rejects you as always. And then you realize, damn, I got grade 12, I need to look for a job at ShopRite. What has the school system taught you? Nothing else but to depend. It's a sad reality. That is why I mock my brothers, the one that I come with from the Eastern Cape. They come here and they find one job for the rest of their life. I mock them because I don't mock them because I embarrass them. I mock them because I say, you suffer because you are not being real with the system. You know how to make it cook. You observed your mother make those maths for years. Why do you keep going back to that construction company? Why can't you say you have the money because you always dream fast from? Huh? Why don't you save the money to buy the material? Because you cannot just be an artist. I understand that it's a reality. You have to face the reality. You work, you save the money, you invest. For example, I work here at Zeitz, right? So I save some of the money to buy my own equipment, to do my own art, than taking things as they are. Because they're not taking me as I am. They tell me how to dress. They tell me how to speak. They tell me how to walk. Tell you how to look. They tell you how to comb your hair. They tell you to brush your teeth. They tell you what shoes to wear. I'm like, so they're not taking me as I am, for real. So why am I being yes to everything? And it's up to you to educate the society how to deal with you, how to communicate with you. You understand me? It's up to you as a human being how you portray yourself. Do you understand me? Because at the end of the day, if you don't, that is why I often say when I speak, I'm not my grandfather. Then people say, what do you mean? I'm like, he just allowed everything to be, and I'm not him. That's what I'm referring to, because people got to understand that this type of man has his own ways of doing things. That is why even in the township, I never get mad at him, because psychologically, when I see thugs coming, they say hi. I have a way to address the brother, how to talk to me, right? Because he's not gonna install fear to me by trying to be clever at me. They understand me. So an artist needs to make sure that where I'm heading to is that you don't put your hand in the mouth of the beast by entering the system with desperate intentions. Otherwise, you're gonna say it's a very ugly word and you have painted that. That is why I'm not even pressured to be like, what paintings have I sold this year? Remember, the first thing or the first intention was to art and tell the story. Right? Now, have you told the story? You're still in the process of telling the story. Now you want to tell the story before you finish the story. Who's getting himself in trouble here? The artist.
I think that's an important point, especially because if you think about the way that art has been contextualized, maybe in art history, the art history canon, and I mean the global conversations now about repatriating artworks and the way African art specifically has been positioned and treated. It's about taking things away. It's about removing pieces of the story. So how do you put it back together if the pieces aren't there? Yeah, it's more a statement than a question. But I wanted to open up to the floor because I know we've kind of been floating through multiple conversations and some important things. But I wanted to open up to the floor and see if anyone had questions for the panelists, questions around privilege, questions around inclusivity, questions around the exhibition as a model of that. Yeah, let us know. We have one question over here.
My question is what I'm really interested to see her work.
The Black Mona Lisa. Okay, can we get it up? We can watch it. It's not very long, so sorry, Bruno.
Yes,
We can.
some technical issues with the computer, so we can't get up right now.
Okay, cool. We can wait.
Restarting.
We can wait a minute
Take
for
another
that.
question, sir.
We've got another question over here.
Hi. With regards to the politics of inclusivity and breaking down the walls of privileges, I think that art is firstly a cause, a movement, right? And our forefathers, our grandparents, our parents, uncles, aunts, they had the privilege to use art as a movement. And there's a lot of information that we don't know about it. So how do we access that information from our forefathers? We don't have the right to access their friends or their investors that help them. So yeah, what do we do as new and upcoming artists or established artists in the art world? So I think that's another perspective as well that we have to look at, and not just the system, but the privileges that our forefathers had and foremothers had as well.
So just to clarify, so there's only 2 schools in the whole of Cape Town that have a curriculum of art in traditional black neighborhoods. Is that correct?
In terms of that aren't art centers, that are just high schools.
As part of the curriculum for a normal Model C?
Yes, just a high school. Yeah. Just Army High and Cedar High in but those are art, dance, music, drumming, design, just mental subjects as well as art subjects. It's not like the art paper as art, it's just those are subject options in grade 10. Like the art school. Yeah,
I mean, I speak for myself, but growing up, particularly in 1995, even in the traditional white schools, art wasn't it was a privilege to have
study
art
art.
as a subject. And coming to the space is a privilege. I don't think that we should think about it as like a right. I think it is a privilege to enjoy art, and the as you guys have talked about, making money out of it is just a miracle.
To convince someone to buy your work, to buy an artwork. I think what do we invest in each other and what do we invest in our stories is an important question. And I wish Anati was here as well, because his work in a lot of ways also speaks to these ideas of how does the story become important for the community, and so who is investing in that. And I think the sad thing is that yes, black art centers were predominantly for black artists to learn about art making, but then again, where do we carry on this way of storytelling, understanding culture, history, and memory?
I think it's also like with what you're saying, this thing of rights or privilege, right? And I'm going to use music as an analogy. Like I'm sure most people in this room know Spotify now, right? And everyone in the last few days has been posting their Spotify rap or whatever. But I saw something the other day where someone was just criticizing that in the sense that look, they haven't been streaming through Spotify, but they've been buying music online directly from the producers, right? So through Bandcamp or where the artists get them in. And I think it's a very capitalist thing to kind of go through these systems and we have to play by the rules of this administrative system, be like, oh, we're so privileged to be here, but where we can, like Manolo was saying, support each other and support each other. You make the choice to buy a Nike sweater or to buy the sweater made by your friend that's printing them in his joint, or to kind of buy a local sneaker brand versus buy. You make the choice of, obviously it's influenced by a whole bunch of cuts, but like we can also push towards influencing each other to support each other. So, support, try, and I think that's also kind of a push again, like you're saying, like us doing it. So I think it's also like how, not anti what you're saying, I'm just meaning it's like, we should also be, look at these spaces for what they are. Like, not be like, oh wow, it's so privileged to be here, but we should be like, it's fucking weird that the waterfront and the dude that used to own Puma bought this place and made it for his private art collection for, kind of to quadruple the profits of already his investment in this African art. And then we all like, wow, we're so privileged to be here. We should also call it what it is and be like, we need other spaces that are actually, way more inclusive, and we can enter these spaces and we can have these chats, but like, you know, it's also like I don't know, like I feel like, you know,
I think it's a question. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think it's also good to acknowledge that like change is possible, because once Zeitz was like the problem child of the art world, and now it's, you know, it's becoming a problem solver of the art world. So it's not impossible to imagine that things that we see as wonderful, there are little cracks and they can be mended. So this phase was once like, but now, you know, it's doing the work, and congratulations to the people who work in it, my friends, people that I know, people who, you know, will be at a bar and will be like, oh, that's awesome. But it's, change is possible. It really is. It's not impossible to imagine. Black-owned galleries and so on, you must just do it. As you say, like, it does have that, you know, if you think of the owner and this and this and this, but it's also doing something that's good. Yeah, I don't know. Before the video is played, I just wanted to say, to note, the lyrics, if you can hear, it's just saying like, I want to be like Donna Kukama. So I mentioned a lot of other black women artists who I look up to, and I also make fun of like, ooh, I might be William Kentridge's daughter because I also make prints, and so it's just making fun of the art world and the people in it, but also it's a homage to people who are great. Yeah, that's it. Cool.
The character, so I'll tell you that her name is Black Mona Lisa. And I love it, you know. So she's stepping into that as well, like she's coming up, she's not necessarily on all of. No, not at all. This is the thing, it's like that she isn't, the character is an artwork. It's not me. It's a statement. It's like an essay. You write an essay, it's an opinion. Yeah, look. The character, so I'll tell you that her name is Black Mona Lisa. And I love it, you know. So she's stepping into that as well, like she's coming up, she's not necessarily on all of. No, not at all. This is the thing, it's like that she isn't, the character is an artwork. It's not me. It's a statement. It's like an essay. You write an essay, it's an opinion. Yeah, look.
Black Mona Lisa in the village. The next one shake right in the ring. Yeah. All of this good for the take all of this good. Bring it so good, cause you can't start a hit. Shout out to Morgan, move the ball out, I'm all on the block. Every single the entire world. Only like you. Only like you. Next level thinkers, makers, trailblazers, black woman, do your thing, famous. Next level thinkers, makers, trailblazers, black woman, do your thing, famous. I'm only down with one name, call me Black Mona Lisa. Hot and famous, rapper, artist, painter, I am your future. Like that, Jackson Pollock, Jackson, cause I'm messy. I'm only down with one name, call me Black Mona Lisa. Hot and famous, rapper, artist, painter, I am your future. Like that, Jackson Pollock, cause I'm messy. Don't call me, I'll call you, believe it. I'll tell my people to tell your people to get their hands to go to Black Mona Lisa. Cause she's famous. It's like I single-handedly annihilated every black female stereotype. type in the building, like I'm Lisa the loud, the ratchet, the messy, the first one on the dance floor. I wanna like to twerk. I'm black and beautiful, I'm black and talented, I'm black and excellent, I'm black and Mona Lisa. Famous. Art must be beautiful, art must be beautiful, I must be beautiful, I must be beautiful. I like to trip, I like it wet. Oh, but get it. I'm only down with one man, call me Black Mona Lisa. Hot and gay with a rapper, artist, painter, I am your future. Like that, Jackson Pun. Cause I'm messy. I'm only down with one name, call me Black Mona Lisa. Hot and gay with a rapper, artist, painter, I am your future. Like that, Jackson Pun. Cause I'm messy. I'm not trying to sound pedantic or anything, but ain't nobody gonna fuck around with my name. Not to get that Mona Lisa. Try it, cause I'm messy. Anyway, that was a lifetime ago.
Thank you for asking us to take the time to watch that. Any other questions? We've got 2 for comments. Just feedback.
Hello. I think for me it's I don't know how to phrase this, but when I hear people say teaching art in school is a privilege, I think our mentality of us thinking of it that way is because we never look at it from a business point of view, right? When you think of it as being a privilege, you're thinking one piece, right? Sell it to the highest bidder. Or like you said, my brother said, sell it for 3,000 rand, we're trying to offer you 3,000 rand for it. But we never think of art as a piece that you could sell for and rent or sell multiple pieces. It's a business side of art. So when you look at it from that point of view, it's still a privilege when you say you want to teach art in school, right? I don't know if I'm putting it in the right context. So when you say teaching art in school, that for me says what's the missing, what are the other missing pieces for us to say, how do we get these kids to understand that yes, this is one part of art, but this is the business side of art, which also unlocks those doors that we're talking about being monopolized by those people having just been in the private galleries or whatever, but they understand that, okay, I don't need to go into these private galleries for me to sell my art. If I can get more pieces on this week, I can move more pieces, that's a business side of art. So do you guys think that that way of thinking is something that's maybe lacking in the art side?
I would like to answer that and say definitely. Even in art school, like you go to fine art school in university, they don't teach us not even the business side. It's like make art, this is your concept. It's very just sticking to the discipline of making artworks and also adding to the discourse of art, like theory and so on. But I think it is sad that we don't think of art as a business. I think in university, if that conversation was expanded, then you won't have like 20 people trying to be signed to a gallery. There could probably be somebody else, like a black-owned gallery right now, but those things they don't equip us with that, And I'm not trying to be like a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but why would you, why would you fertilize where there might be potentially room for competition? This sounds like I'm on YouTube now. But I see that, and nobody's gonna teach you to think that way, even in school. nobody's going to teach you to build business models. Nobody's going to teach you to be better than them, essentially. So it's just, I think, it's a mentality, and you have to go through shit, and you have to kind of, sometimes you just have to be beaten down so much that you go, you know what, I'm gonna, there's my brick, and I'm gonna go build it a day by day, but I'm gonna do my own. So actually, maybe sometimes it's better when it comes from that point, because you hit back stronger, you know. But yeah, nobody's gonna teach you how to beat them at their own game.
Just to add to that, and what you were saying earlier also about just it's the general structure of school. Obviously, you have educators within schools all over the place that go far and beyond. You know, that sit in classes after hours making CVs, showing people how to make CVs, helping people apply to whichever institution, things like that, right? But in terms of like why isn't and I think it's not far off to say it's conspiracy, right? Because it is like what you're saying, people are prepped for certain kind of for the workforce, right? In different senses, and different schools have been tiered in different spaces to prep people for different types of workforces also, right? So obviously we need to create within that be trying to put people onto basically entrepreneurship and people basically linking what you're doing in business studies with what you're doing in art, because they're actually tied. You can make way more money than just studying business studies, or et cetera, et cetera. But even within, like, I can only speak from the structure that I teach in. Other teachers don't take art seriously because of their own perspectives. They don't take art seriously as a subject. They think, okay, that's where people go make a mess. Like, we send all the people we don't want in our subjects to that subject because, they can go make a mess there at school. But, if you had more of a like a holistic approach where you looked at, if you took what you were learning in business studies or in, maths. Also, if you look at arts, there's a lot of subjects you taught, maths, you taught this is how maths works. You're not taught make up a new type of maths, or there's many problems to kind of invent, your kind of own way. It's a language to look at the world. And art is one of the few subjects that has open space for kind of critical thinking and teaching, imagining new stuff, like reimagining, imagination being the key. And that's a powerful thing, but that's also a reason why it's such a subject that maybe, like you even say, even in white schools in the 90s, not many schools, why it's maybe a privilege, because it's a dangerous subject in a sense, you asking people to question and to dream and to think, and to dream, question, imagine. That shit is very scary to people that are admins of the system or sitting. It's something that people don't want. Doesn't want people to be starting their own business. Everyone Stevenson doesn't want a whole bunch of people to be like, we can actually rent a small business for instance, and make them prove us and make a far edgier gallery.
But it's happening now, and it's good.
Ngiyabulela man ngombuzo wakho, Angie, we understand. I'm grateful that you come up with that thought. We understand because that's one of the harshest realities that hit you when you come from college overseas with those high hopes. I'm an artist. And then 6 months down the line, you're still asking your mother for 50 rand. Then she's like, what the hell did I educate you for? You understand? For example, I'm not one of those guys who make artworks like he's making bakers. Like those, you understand? I don't make artworks to sell them. You understand? One of those artists who probably sells like 3 paintings a year. But I have other ways to make my money or my living, which is, that's what Angile is saying right there. I feel like the system is playing dead, was playing stupid as an off as an aftertaste or something. The thing is, they know that, once again, Udin was already making the painting. Ne? Okay, fine. Let's tell him it's okay to be comfortable and only focus on making the painting. See? Don't get in that mean work. Don't get involved when we market and how we sell it. Don't get involved. You're fine. You are a mass productive producer, and all you do is to paint, which is great. And people are like, wow, that's great. That's stupid. Because you're actually handing your legacy over to other people to look after it for you while you're still alive. And when you're dead, Then your family goes to that whatever color. They're like, hey, our son used to. They're like, no, he's signing the form. And your family is like, what? But I know what I'm saying. I know what I'm saying because my father was an artist. There's not even one single painting of his at home. To an extent, you can't even have that conversation because whenever I say, Mom, how's that? She gets triggered because she's like, you have no idea that actually you are him. Everything. And I fear that I don't want what happened to him to you. Now I'm like, yo. So I got to correct his wrongs and make. I can't even afford to make a mistake more than that. Because I've already been crucified for a dead man's sin already. You know what I mean? All these subject matters ain't nothing without art. But they play dead by making us look like dummies. How they make us look like dummies? By like, you know, they always say, you guys, like, police have uniforms, doctors have uniforms, showbread. They're like, you guys don't even have uniforms. I'm like, who's proud of the slavery outfit? What the hell is wrong with you? Get out of the stage, for God's sake. Run away. And as you said, in all those subjects they teach, not even one of them is not designed by an artist. Well, to prove that they need us. Engineering is art. Even money that we fight about, they need us to design it. Then they're like, here, design it. Just we keep the real one. You know what I mean? And Tina, we as artists, we need to stop to always born ready saviors. We need, for some point, we need to stop saving the world. We need to sit like this and be like, I don't care what happens. You know why we need to stop saving the world? Because the world needs to drown. Because the world doesn't realize that it's in danger. You can't save someone who's not aware of the danger they're in because you saved them, they ask you, why are you interfering with my business? And you're like, but you were what? You were what? Invading my presence. Yeah, understand? We need to understand that even South Africa, even the South African government, in all that momish they did there during the apartheid, they needed us to write the songs. They needed us to paint the banners. You understand? Then comes what? The so-called thing freedom. Then what do they say? They don't show us that, okay, like you guys played a big role. All we see is one man with his hand up like Hitler everywhere. They stake you everywhere. Like, okay, yeah, we see you, Nelson, man, you're alright. It's like you did it on your own. Yeah, it's alright. But we're there though, you know, though, huh? Yeah, understand? So we as artists, for example, at some point we can do a lockdown, like no song, no art. Because humans are taking us for granted. Humans think we just baby makers. It's the same way men treat man, the same way the innocent treat artists.
Then at what point do we take responsibility for it? Like
we mock them.
We're talking about the model that's been put forward here. It's about taking ownership and building the models. I mean, it's our industry. It's not other people's industry.
Exactly.
I just want to ask because there's one more question and we're running out of time. And on YouTube, so it's
Yeah. So my question is there hope for black artists? I'm asking because I'll say the artist is in the middle, and you've got the establishment, right, which you're sort of trying to change in terms of inclusion and privilege, right? And then you've got your black people. I'm not from the art industry, so I just don't own any piece of art. Like I was a computers tutor at Decatur, so I got into this space. and I can't afford my friend's art, right? I'm like, no, I'm gonna pay you that kind of money. So my challenge to you, and it's a question that a challenge in it at the same time, is you need to convince your people to buy the art. Like what you were saying, you want to start your own gallery, etc. You know, that was art. I could buy that because music is sort of art in a way. But for most black people, art is there's no inclusion. Even when I look at a black person's art, I'm like, you're not sending a message to me. You're sending a message to somebody sitting in Zurich. So speaking of Zurich, right? I wanted to host something like this last year, and having discussions around race and privilege, etc. Then I went to one of my friends who had made art through the whole Rhodes Must Fall thing, and I really liked UCT at the time. And my friend was now like making it big in the art space, and then my friend said to me, I can't be seen on camera talking about privilege and race, because right now where my trajectory is going, it's gonna upset a lot of people. So this is like a very close friend of mine, and I understand where the friend was coming from. So that's what I'm saying. Is there hope for an artist? Because one, your own people aren't gonna support you, right? Because like that uncle saw you in the street, he doesn't think you got a job. Then you go to the establishment, and you're trying to change things there. And if your voice is too loud, they might just, keep you outside the door. So in conclusion, we've had an hour and a half talking about privilege and inclusion. What's the way forward? What are the practical things we need to do so that it doesn't, so that we change the way things are, so that artists get paid? Like, I'm trying to start a business, and one thing that I really need is a logo. And because I need the logo that sends the message, I'm willing to pay. But if it wasn't for that, I was never going to pay a lot of money for a logo. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, with artists, the challenge is for you to say, to prove your worth to the people. That's a very tangible solution that artists can have. And then there's a lot of black people in the country. Your art doesn't have to be expensive, but if you've got a business model that will sell to 2 million black people, you become a millionaire or something like that. That's where my headspace is at in conclusion.
Anyone got anything to
Yes, I would say yes, there is absolutely hope for artists. I'm not like doom and gloom about the art world. There is a lot of work that needs to be done because art, I saw just working in a gallery, for instance, there's a culture about it. Like with black people, we do love art, we like nice things, like music. Art is like, you see a beautiful thing, we like it. We do enjoy the finer things in life. We do enjoy art and all of these things. But we don't necessarily, like on a Saturday, we're not like, hey, get ready, 1 o'clock, the gallery is closing, you must go and see this. It's not part of like our daily. Like if you look at, if I'm working at a gallery on a Saturday, there's like little, I'll say, white families bring their kids and their little 2-year-olds, and from a young age, they're like initiated into that culture of like, this is the thing. And then I think it's also easier if you grow up in that culture, that way of living, and you choose to become an artist or assistant player in the art world. It's like, it's easy. You're not doing administrative work in a gallery. It's like second nature. Art becomes second nature to you. We who went through like not knowing what an artist is, we just like we learn by looking and seeing how other people act and do, and we try to do as white people have been doing all along, because it is like it's a business model that I would really say it kind of belongs to them. Because if I think about African people and art, it was more ritualistic and a part of our lives. It wasn't to make money. It wasn't So it's just, I would say, if we there's hope if we start getting if you had to influence more black people to not invest in and I'm really not being rude or whatever, but like instead of buying like that Louis Vuitton bag, buying an artwork is an investment. So it's also teaching people about the investment that comes with art. If you buy something, it actually appreciates, unlike a car. So I think it's just teaching like the value systems within this cultural system, you know. But also for me, if I had to influence like up and coming artists, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, strive to become an artist. Venture into other arenas like economics and so on. If you look at Stevenson, like Michael Stevenson, who started Stevenson, he's not an artist. I think he started by obviously selling art and loving art and stuff like that. But like I think he's like an economist or something like that. He's saying his business. So it's not necessarily, I think it's, I don't know how to say this, but just teach people that there's value in it. Yeah.
Okay. Then go to Cincinnati. To meet you halfway, brother. Ne? Okay. Okay. It's a pity that they didn't show my biography. Ne? Now I'm there in my area. When there's a birthday, I'm the photographer. When there's a wedding, I'm the photographer. You understand? I'm trying to show you other streams of income that I make. You understand? And because I'm this person that I am, these local musicians, I ghostwrite songs as well. Then I say, don't mention my name. You sing this, give me my money. You understand? So that's how I generate other things. You understand? And then I treat the artworks at the bank. Take one every 2 years, or take 3 every 4 years. You understand? So I make these little commission products, like doing an artwork and then I print it on a t-shirt or something.
Just also, I mean, I think what comes in is also what we're defining. We're talking about art, but like we're talking about high art. You know what I mean? Like we're not talking about all the different. There's like all these different tiers about like art that's kept, like this art that's like, if you're gonna get into Stevenson, you're gonna be making art that's kind of speaking to the people in Zurich, that's kind of packaging your pain in a certain way, or whatever, to kind of play to these, and it's supposed to be conceptual. And you're not gonna, for instance, like the art world looks down on stuff that's seen as more like lower art, like graffiti or public murals or a design on a t-shirt. But that is also art, and I think it's also looking at trying to encourage younger artists to target different price points, like make t-shirts, make prints. If you can make a print that's 100 rand that all your friends can buy, that's your production cost, or things like that is accessible, that you want in your apartment or something like that. And I think it's these institutions teach us to think that that's not art, and it's low art, like, and that's bubblegum or whatever, but like that can be some of the hardest shit actually, and in many ways you could argue that what you go into, Stevenson, that's the aim that Zurich can be so high and conceptual, but like you bring a group of kids in there from a high school, they're gonna speak honestly about what is this bullshit? It's just like a stick and a thing, and I'm just talking practically, like it in itself gets caught in its own mythologies and bullshit, and there's a lot of beautiful stuff as well, but I'm just meaning, it's not like, there's not we're not, we should acknowledge these weird, gritty hierarchies that we've inherited and we've been kind of pushed into, but like encourage younger artists to not be afraid to target different price points, put your artworks on sneakers, put your artworks on whatever, like, and target stuff that you can, like you say, be an artist in different senses, and that's like, I guess it goes back to, again, us stockpiling stuff together to kind of try to make it, kind of survive as freelancers as well. Yeah.
Just one question from YouTube. Question comes from Tere Kutupo, who's also an artist. His question is, in terms of this exhibition, what is the end game for it? Is Zeitz acquiring any of the work from these artists? And then just a phrase, he says, in terms of lasting impact.
In terms of?
Lasting impact. Sustainability.
So I guess as an institutional question, I'll answer that one. The intention is that the works go back to all of the artists, to all of the lenders. And a big thank you to everyone that submitted their artwork. I think the exhibition was a very unique and radical model for the museum. And I think that was the biggest learning curve for us and the community that supported and provided their artworks. I don't know if there's an intention to have a next one soon, but it's still on the table for discussion. And I think it's a very good point, because sustainability is something that we are consistently asking in this space. It's a huge machine that needs exhibitions and conversations and new thoughts. We're constantly trying to sharpen ourselves and shape what the space is. So I think sustainability is a very big and important question, especially because if maybe you spoke to some of the team about it, it was a huge production to try and get into these different sites, bring people here, go out to people, bring the artwork, kind of listen to the stories as well. There's an emotional labor that happens with a project like this as well, with the people that you work with. So yeah, sustainability is a very good and important question around this exhibition. But I think it also urges an art community to keep sustaining themselves, like doing the work.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'd just like your opinion on the relationship between artists and curators, and how that could answer some of the questions or difficulties that we face in the art industry about privilege. So how could that relationship alone just fix some of these issues? And that's to the whole panel.
I'm going to answer first as a curator. And so that, I mean, I like to think that the curator is like the victory knox for artists. Like, we can solve problems, we can fix things, we can do things. We're sometimes the doormat that artists walk over, you know, in many ways the problem solver. But I know also sometimes the problem, I think the curator is a very privileged role of someone who gets to study art and say and do things without actually having any talent or any skill of any kind. But you might argue that, you might challenge me on that.
I have mixed feelings about curators. It's a profession. If I had known, I would have become a curator first of all, because curators it is an important role. But I just think even curators are taken better care of than artists are, and I find that extremely ironic and ridiculous. Like, if you look at their salaries, for instance. An artist gets invited onto an exhibition, you don't even get money for material. You just have to bring the artwork there. You don't get what would you call it? Like a production fee, or just like a honorarium, or whatever it's called. And it's just like there are certain system players who are so privileged also in what their lifestyles become, and artists are always at the bottom. And I just like curators, like, let's struggle together, because wow, I can become an artist curator. I can think of things and put together shows and all of these things. So I just find it weird with curators are really put on a pedestal, and the artist is always at the bottom. So me, the curator, thing is a very touchy subject. Like, I see some curators flexing, and I'm like, how? Like, you don't even suffer. You don't. I studied for so long. There's a curatorship course. It's like 1 year, and you're good to go. I don't get it.
So wait a minute. Formula. I do the painting. If you buy it, you want to hang it upside down, I'm not involved. It's called perspective. I did the painting. I don't. Come on, man. Dude. So they got so much to say in the world right now. Bob Marley wrote that song. Lauren Hill makes a remix.
I think it's also it's crazy. Like, I mean, curators are artists. I mean, you're DJing. Not all of them. Like, we're talking about admin in its essence. I mean, like you are, you're getting a bunch of different artwork. You're DJing a playlist. Basically, it should be like that. But the way I agree with you, like the
They read and they research. They do the work that the artists would kind of be too tired to do or whatever. But yeah, they are the DJ and they're playing songs that people took hours and hours to make, and then just for that DJ set, they get like 50K for pressing play.
Do you think they should do the job but take the name away? Is it a matter of titles, or it's a matter of you feel like someone is really showing you that, you know?
But I do want to say an answer to Bukeng's question.
Somebody must do the job actually at the end of the day. Somebody must be a curator, somebody must be an artist.
Yeah. And with that, I wanted to say shout out to Tammy and Bukeng for curating this, because this is an example. No, but what you're asking, you know what I'm saying? It's really about, like, you guys have curated this conversation panel into the space and given us this topic to speak about, which is also an example of what you're saying about how we can work together to change the space. Yeah.
Thank you guys for your time. Thank you so much to the audience. I know that this one had slightly less action points than the weekend's one, but I think more will come as we keep speaking. So I hope you're going to see you at the next one, which is next week, Thursday, the 10th of December. Yes. Thank you so much.